December 11, 1944, 21:00 hours, the shoreline of Ormoc Bay, Leyte, the Philippines. The rain in Leyte doesn't just fall, it erases the world. It is a heavy, warm, suffocating curtain that turns the black volcanic sand into a sludge that sucks the boots off a man's feet. Tonight, the monsoon darkness is absolute. You cannot see your hand in front of your face, but if you listen past the drumming of the rain on steel helmets and the rhythmic lap of the camouflaged surf, you can hear the breathing of 2,000 men. They are dug in along the perimeter of a captured pier, huddled in foxholes that are rapidly filling with water. But the most important weapons on this beach aren't rifles. They are heavy, angular silhouettes parked just yards from the breaking waves. These are the M10 Wolverines of the 638th Tank Destroyer Battalion. Normally, an M10 is an ambush predator of the European hedgerows, designed to hunt German panzers with a high-velocity 3-inch gun. But tonight, they are. Far from the hedgerows, they are sitting exposed on a beach in the Pacific, their open-top turrets cover with wet tarps, their crews straining their eyes against the black void of the Camote Sea. To understand why a tank destroyer battalion is aiming its guns at the ocean, you have to understand the men manning the line. They aren't the young, lean paratroopers of the 101st Airborne or the seasoned Marines of the 1st Division. These are the men of the 77th Infantry Division. They call themselves the Statue of Liberty Division because of the patch on their shoulders. The rest of the army calls them something else. The Old Bastards. The average age in the 77th is 32. Many are married. They have children waiting for them in Brooklyn, mortgages in Queens, and jobs in Manhattan offices. When the draft notices came, they were considered bordering on too old for frontline infantry service. The Army expected them to fill support roles, to drive trucks or type reports. Instead, they were handed M1 Garands and sent into the meat grinder of the Pacific. But age brings something that youth often lacks: patience. Just 4 days ago, on December 7th, the 3rd anniversary of Pearl Harbor, the 77th pulled off a daring amphibious landing behind Japanese lines here at Ormoc. It was a breakneck operation designed to sever the Japanese supply lines. The fighting has been savage. The 77th took the town of Ormoc, destroying the Japanese garrison block by block, proving that these old bastards could fight just as hard as the kids. Now they are the cork in the bottle. General Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya, knows that if Ormoc falls, Leyte falls. And if Leyte falls, the Philippines are lost. He is desperate. For weeks, the Japanese Navy has been running the Tokyo Express, fast convoys of destroyers and transports attempting to rush reinforcements onto the island under the cover of darkness. Tonight, the intelligence reports are grim. The G2 scouts have warned of movement in the strait. The Japanese are coming back. They are desperate to land troops to retake this beachhead. Sergeant Charles Chief Anderson, a gun commander in the 638th, wipes the condensation off his optical sights. He checks the traverse of his turret. The M10 is a powerful weapon, but it has thin armor. It is not designed to trade blows with warships. If a Japanese destroyer spots them first, its 5-inch naval guns will turn the M10s into burning scrap metal before they can get off a second shot. The strategy for tonight is improvisation born of necessity. The infantry doesn't have heavy coastal artillery. They don't have enough air support in this weather. What they have is a line of tank destroyers, a few artillery spotters, and the discipline to wait. The order has been passed down the line: hold fire. The rain intensifies. The wind howls, masking the sound of engines. Every shadow on the water looks like a ship. Every whitecap looks like a landing craft. The tension is a physical weight, pressing down on the chest of every loader, gunner, and commander. Then at 22:00 hours, the rain breaks just slightly. Out in the bay, perhaps 5,000 yards out, a silhouette detaches itself from the darkness. It is darker than the night sky. It is blocky, unnatural, and it is moving fast. It isn't alone. Behind it, another shape, and another. The old bastards grip their weapons. The Tokyo Express has arrived, and it is heading straight for them. The bay is a theater of shadows. Through the telescopic sights of the M10 tank destroyers, the gunners watch the convoy grow from vague smears of darkness into distinct mechanical forms. There is no moon, but the phosphorescence of the wake trailing the vessels betrays their position. 5 ships. Leading the formation is a destroyer, its bow cutting the water with arrogant speed. Trailing it are huge transport vessels, laden with reinforcements intended to push the 77th Division back into the sea. They are moving with a terrifying confidence. The Japanese commanders believe the shoreline is either contested or lightly defended. They have no idea that they are sailing into the sights of a hardened armored battalion. Inside the turret of the lead M10, the air is thick with the smell of wet canvas, oil, and nervous sweat. The loader cradles a 3-inch armor-piercing shell, its cold steel resting against his chest. He watches his commander, waiting for the hand signal. Every instinct screams to fire. The enemy is within 3,000 yards, well within the effective range of the M10's main gun. A single shot now could announce their presence. But the order from the command post is absolute: hold. This is the discipline of the old bastards in action. A unit of green recruits might have panicked and opened up at maximum range, scoring a few lucky hits before the Japanese destroyer turned its massive naval guns on their position. But these men understand the geometry of the ambush. They need the Japanese to commit. They need them to come so close that missing is impossible. On the radio net, the chatter is stripped to the bare essentials. Coordinates are whispered. Range adjustments are calculated in heads, not on paper. The artillery observers, hidden in the palm groves further inland, are cross-referencing the ship movements with pre-plotted firing solutions. The Japanese ships slow down. They are now 1,000 yards out. Suddenly, a light flickers from the bridge of the lead Japanese transport. It blinks a rhythmic code toward the shore, a challenge signal. They are asking for confirmation from the friendly troops they expect to be waiting for them. On the beach, the Americans hold their breath. If they fire a flare, the ruse is up. If they do nothing, the Japanese might sense a trap and turn away. The seconds stretch into hours. The signal light blinks again, more urgent this time. The Americans remain silent. The jungle gives nothing back. Confused but undeterred, the Japanese convoy makes a fatal assumption. They assume the weather or a communications breakdown is to blame. They press forward. 800 yards. The sound of the engines changes, a deep, thrumming vibration that can be felt in the ground. The ships are bleeding off speed. They are preparing to drop anchor. They are going to unload thousands of fresh troops right onto the American doormat. The lead M10 commander, peering through his periscope, can see the crew on the decks of the enemy ships. He can see the davits swinging out, preparing to lower landing craft. They are so close he can almost distinguish individual figures. It is a surreal, almost intimate proximity. This is not naval warfare. This is a knife fight in a phone booth. Ideally, an M10 is a sniper. It shoots and scoots. It is not a pillbox. Its armor is less than 2 inches thick on the hull, paper-thin against the 127 guns of a destroyer. If this ambush fails to neutralize the enemy guns in the first volley, the retaliation will be total. The M10 crews are sitting in open-topped coffins, praying that the element of surprise is enough. The squeal of rusted metal cuts through the rain. Splash! The sound of anchors hitting the water echoes across the bay. The Japanese ships have stopped. They are sitting ducks, motionless in the water, less than 700 yards from the muzzle of the tank destroyers. The battery commander drops his hand. The radio crackles with a single word that releases the tension of the last 4 hours. Fire! The night is torn apart by a violence so sudden it stuns the senses. Simultaneously, the battery of M10s erupts. The muzzle blast of a 3-inch gun is a physical blow, a concussion that shakes the wet sand and rattles the fillings of the crewmen. In the pitch blackness of Ormoc Bay, the flashes are blinding stroboscopic bursts, momentarily illuminating the terrified faces of the Japanese sailors on the decks of the transports. At a range of less than 700 yards, missing is impossible. The first volley slams into the hulls of the Japanese ships with the sound of sledgehammers hitting hollow oil drums. These are armor-piercing rounds, traveling at 2,600 feet per second. They punch through the thin steel of the transports as if it were wet cardboard. Then comes the high-explosive HE follow-up. Inside the turret of Sergeant Anderson's M10, the rhythm is frantic but practiced. Clang, the breech opens, spitting out a smoking brass casing. Thud, the loader shoves a fresh round into the chamber. Click, the breech block slides up. Up, screams the loader. On the way, shouts the gunner. The recoil rocks the 30-ton vehicle violently on its suspension. Out in the bay, the scene is apocalyptic. The lead destroyer, the greatest threat to the beachhead, is hammered before it can even traverse its turret. A shell finds its magazine or a boiler. A column of white fire geysers hundreds of feet into the air, turning the rain into steam. The ship lists. Sickeningly to port, its back broken in seconds. The element of surprise is absolute. The Japanese crews, expecting a quiet landing, are now trapped in a kill zone of terrifying efficiency. They attempt to return fire, but they are shooting blind. Tracers from the ships arch wildly over the heads of the Americans, tearing harmlessly into the jungle canopy behind them. They have no targets, only the flashing muzzles that wink out of existence as soon as they fire. But the M10s aren't fighting alone. Now that the trap is sprung, the 77th Division's artillery opens up from inland. 105 and 155 howitzers join the chorus, their heavier shells arching high overhead before crashing down onto the superstructure of the doomed convoy. The distinct crump-crump-crump of 40 Bofors anti-aircraft guns, lowered to fire horizontally, adds a rhythmic, tearing sound to the cacophony. The water of Ormoc Bay is churned into a frothing mix of oil, blood, and burning debris. One of the large transports loaded with ammunition and fuel takes a direct hit amidships. The explosion is so bright it momentarily turns night into day, revealing the silhouettes of palm trees miles down the coast. The shockwave ripples across the water, slapping against the hulls of the tank destroyers. For the men of the 77th, the old bastards, this is no longer a battle, it is an execution. There is no panic in their movements, only the grim, industrial efficiency of men doing a job they want to finish so they can go home. They switch targets methodically, hit the waterline, hit the bridge, next ship. A Japanese vessel attempts to turn, its engines churning white water in a desperate bid to escape back to the open sea. It doesn't make it. 3 M10s concentrate their fire. Shell after shell rips into the stern, destroying the rudder and the screws. Dead in the water, the ship begins to burn fiercely, the flames reflecting on the black water like a funeral pyre. And then, almost as quickly as it began, the targets are gone. One by one, the shapes in the bay succumb to gravity. The fires hiss and sputter as the bows slip beneath the surface. The screaming of metal and men fades, replaced by the crackle of burning oil slicked across the waves. The gunners look through their sights. There is nothing left to shoot. The battery commander checks his watch. It is 22:18. 18 minutes have passed since the first shot. In less time than it takes to eat a K-ration lunch, an Infantry Division's anti-tank unit has annihilated a naval task force. Cease fire, the order comes over the net. Cease fire. The guns fall silent. The ringing in the men's ears is deafening, a high-pitched whine that drowns out the returning sound of the rain. Smoke drifts lazily across the beach, stinging the eyes. The old bastards slump in their turrets, adrenaline crashing, the cold rain washing the sweat from their faces. They wait for the counterattack, for the vengeance of the Japanese Navy. But out in the darkness of the strait, there is only the sound of the ocean reclaiming its own. Dawn breaks over Leyte like a bruise, purple, gray, and swollen with rain. As the light bleeds into the sky, the men of the 77th Infantry Division climb stiffly out of their foxholes and turret hatches. They rub eyes red-rimmed from fatigue and cordite smoke, turning their gaze toward the water. The bay is a graveyard. Where a Japanese task force had sailed with arrogant purpose just hours before, there is now only wreckage. The surface of Ormoc Bay is slick with a thick, iridescent coat of oil that dampens the waves. Debris bobs in the gentle swell, crates, life vests, shattered timber. And jutting out of the shallow water like the skeletal remains of prehistoric beasts are the blackened superstructures of the transport ships. The count comes in slowly, relayed from the forward observers to the command post. 5 ships entered the bay, 0 left. In the cold light of day, the magnitude of the event begins to settle on the shoulders of the old bastards. They check their own lines. They count their own men. Casualties, none. It is a statistic that seems impossible. A handful of tank destroyers and field artillery, firing from a fixed position on a beach, had engaged a naval convoy capable of leveling a city block, and they hadn't lost a single man. In the weeks and months that follow, Army investigators and naval intelligence officers will pore over the after-action reports. They will interview the gunners, measure the shell casings, and study the ballistics. They are looking for a precedent, a manual, a doctrine that explains how an anti-tank battalion functions as a coastal defense battery. They find nothing. The engagement at Ormoc Bay stands as a tactical anomaly, a singularity in the massive, sprawling history of the Second World War. There are other instances of tanks firing at ships and ships firing at tanks, but nowhere else in the records of. The U.S. Army is there a confirmed case of a tank destroyer unit sinking a flotilla of enemy warships from the shore, entirely on their own, in 18 minutes. The M10 Wolverine was built to kill German panzers in the hedgerows of France. It was a tool of specialized, high-velocity violence designed for a specific purpose. But in the hands of the 77th, it became something else. It became a testament to the American soldier's greatest weapon, adaptability. The old bastards don't have time to celebrate their unique place in history. The war does not stop for a miracle. There are still ridges to take, jungles to clear, and an enemy that refuses to surrender. From Leyte, they will move on to the meat grinder of Okinawa. They will fight on the ridges of Shuri Castle. They will face kamikazes and banzai charges. They will bleed and die, proving time and again that the older men of the draft, the husbands, the fathers, the substandard soldiers, possess a grit that cannot be measured in a recruitment office. But for the survivors, the night of December 11th, 1944, will always be different. Years later, back in the quiet suburbs of New York and New Jersey, when the uniforms are mothballed and the nightmares have, mostly, faded, they will tell the story. They will tell their children about the night the ocean caught fire, about the time they stood on a beach in the Philippines and fought a duel with the Imperial Japanese Navy, and won. History often remembers the elite, the Rangers at Point du Hoc, the Marines on Iwo Jima, the paratroopers at Bostonia. But looking back at the black waters of Ormoc Bay, the record must include the 77th. They were ordinary men who were asked to do the impossible, in the middle of the night, in the pouring rain. And they didn't miss.